Disclaimer: I do not rule out magic as answer to any and all problems I have tackled in this video. I am only trying to find a way and explain said problems without using magic, by using only science available to humans. Hello my friends, my name is Neuron and today I have another video for you guys. This video is going to be slightly different as the subject I tackled here reached the limits of human knowledge, and so I could not explain certain things because they are not yet clear to us humans. But even so, I was managed to find interesting information and possibilities, and I reached a more or less solid answer. So sit back and without further ado, let us dive into the inquiry of the Parasprites. If you know something on biology and you are as nitpicky as I am, then Swarm of the Century must have bugged you to a certain level, where the reason of course are the Parasprites themselves. These creatures make no sense. They show the properties of mammals, reptiles, insects and microorganisms, but they don't really seem to fit into any of these categories. So when we start this inquiry, our main question is, what are the Parasprites, or what animal type are they? Let's start from, well, the start. In the opener, we can see Fluttershy picking flowers for the upcoming visit from Princess Celestia when she is disturbed by a sudden purr and finds the only thing in the show that can stand up to her own cuteness. That is, the first Parasprite. A queer thing that should be pointed out right now is that even though we are later told by the same yellowy sugar bomb that the creature was found at the edge of the Everfree forest, no such forest was seen in the opener. I suppose one could say that the green background thing we saw is the forest, but it really doesn't look anything like Everfree. The other possible explanation is that due to her easily frightened temper, Fluttershy's definition of edge is in fact a lot farther away from the forest than usually assumed. That would mean she is much farther away than what you'd think about when hearing the phrase edge of forest. Then comes the inevitable question of what the hell the Parasprite was doing so far away from the forest, since they are native to the forest and do not go outside often. There are two main options that I could think about to explain that. A, the obvious answer, is that the Parasprite was drawn to the apple basket it have later devoured. Or B, the less observed answer, is that since the Parasprites have shown a certain attraction towards music, it is Fluttershy's singing that drew the creature from inside the forest. Neither of these were proven and neither contradict each other, so both could be at play in the process causing the Parasprite to leave its home and go on a little adventure. Of course, you can also say that it was attracted to Fluttershy's heat, smell, movement or anything else like that, or that it was just luck that he got out so far, but the two options I've pointed out are the two that stood up the most in this scene. Now, a quick observation on Parasprites' physiology based solely on their appearance. Their eyes look similar to other eyes found in the insect domain. Their voice can be produced either like a cat, or like a cricket, or like a rattlesnake, and their mouth seems pretty identical to other vegetarian mammals. After meeting the cute circular creature, the kind Fluttershy tries to share her apples with the Parasprite, only to be surprised by the Parasprite's hunger as he eats the content of an apple basket more than 6 times his own size. Anyone who knows anything about how the world works knows that mass and energy do not appear nor disappear. That is quite problematic, as the Parasprite does not seem to gain mass from eating his own version of 5 fridge-full of apples. The only conclusion left is that the Parasprite became a whole lot denser after eating the apples. For that to work, the Parasprite's inside should be able to mash the apples into 1/6 of their size in mere seconds. That is theoretically possible, though extremely unlikely and unusual, but I don't really have a better explanation. The Parasprites could have evolved that eating method in order to eat fast and to store some of their food for later use. They evolved that because the food in Everfree is spare, and when you do find some you better grab it as fast as you can before someone else takes it. After finishing its meal, the chubby little bug comes back to his newly formed friend and takes shelter in her mane. This is quite interesting, for the Parasprite seems to have a thing for cuddling. If you look throughout the episode, the Parasprite seems to be as eager as the ponies when it comes to petting and cuddling. And even though animals that enjoy cuddling exist, I propose another explanation. I think that in addition to their lack of fear from ponies, and similarly to some species of insects and reptiles, the Parasprites are drawn to body heat. That would explain why the Parasprites are okay with all the ponies petting them, and also why that Parasprite just decided to go into Fluttershy's mane in the first place. Their heat attraction could be a way to find food or to maintain body temperature if they're incapable of producing heat, or if you'd prefer, if they're cold-blooded. This can also explain why a lot of them were later found in warm places like Twilight's and Spike's bed and the cloud Rainbow Dash sleeps in. Keep this detail in mind, I will refer to it later. Coming back to the episode, the town is getting ready for the upcoming visit from royalty, and apart from the fact that the amount of flowers suggests that the episode happens during the spring, there is not much else to talk about. The fact that the episode supposedly takes place in the spring, and the fact that in the end of the episode we are told there's an infestation in Philadelphia suggest another possibility. Now, if we say that the infestation in Philadelphia is a Parasprite infestation, then one of three things have happened. A very unlikely coincidence have occurred. B, Philadelphia is close to Ponyville and the Parasprite reached Philadelphia from Ponyville. Or C, the Parasprites have more and less active times in the year. These are the only options I can think of, for the infestation needed to get to a level bad enough to call for help from the princess. The first option is always possible, but, well, do I even need to talk about it? The second option is very unlikely, for we never see or hear anything about Philadelphia's location, so it's not likely that it's close to Ponyville. I think that the third option is the likeliest, for a lot of animals have more and less active time periods, whether it's hibernation or migration or simply the time between the death of a mature insect and the hatching of its siblings. Since it is not uncommon here, it's not unusual for the Parasprites to have that too. Again, keep this detail in mind, I will return to it. Back in Ponyville, Twilight visits her favorite bakery to find Pinkie Pie being Pinkie Pie, eating every sweet she lays eyes on. Twilight just begins to lecture her about the importance of the royal sweets when everyone's favorite yellow pony, Apple Bloom, jumps into the scene. Fluttershy then tells her friend of the adorable candy insect she found in her latest adventure, to which Twilight reacts with love and tolerance, and Pinkie Pie gags and goes to find the tuba. A question that needs to be asked is where on Earth, or where on Equestria, did Pinkie Pie encounter the Parasprites before? It was not in Ponyville, for if it was, the Parasprites would not have taken the town by such a surprise, and they would know the threat of the creatures as soon as they started raining. Given, the townsfolk's memory isn't glimmering to say the least, with them forgetting important developments all the time, but for logic's sakes, let us assume that they are normal townsfolk and they would remember something like a swarm of candy bugs eating all of their food. So where Pinkie did met them before? It could be on the rock farm, or if she've ever been anywhere else, it could have been there. Since we don't know if she did go anywhere else, and it's unlikely she lived somewhere else other than Ponyville considering her young age in cheese sandwiches story, we can safely assume she learned about them on the rock farm. But why would she learn about a locustish creature like that in a remote small place like the rock farm? They don't have a lot of food there and we don't see any other pony settlements in sight, so there are three possible explanations. 1. The Pie family traditionally teach their young ones about the Parasprites for some reason. 2. The rock farm is located near a place where Parasprites are commonly found. Or 3. There was an infestation in the rock farm.
But wait, didn't you just said it is unlikely they were infested since they don't have a lot of food there and are located in the middle of nowhere?
Yes I did. In fact, my statement saying that they don't have a lot of food there is never proven, and they even have a large storage silo in their farm, which is currently empty. Even though it's used as a room in the flashback, its original purpose must have been to store food, unless it was intentionally designed to look like a silo, something I cannot see the Pie family doing. Therefore, either the Pie family stopped using it to store food and started to use it as a room, or their food storage is currently empty, which likely means that it was not intentional, for an empty storage with no pony settlements in sight would mean a danger of starvation. So yeah, in short, maybe that empty silo was a result of a Parasprite infestation, or maybe not, I don't know. So, after completely ignoring Pinkie, her two best friends decides to split up the adorable loot, leaving Twilight with a yellow and a half Parasprite. The two then decide that for the show to stay age appropriate, Twilight should give up on her Parasprite half. Shortly after, our future purple princess pony is found in her friend's shop, where Rarity is fixed on bringing giant 16th century wigs back into fashion. The purple princess then starts showing off her newest pocket pet, only to find 2 extra winged rainbow spheres have been added to her collection. Completely oblivious to the obvious danger in that scenario, Twilight happily gives 2 of her Parasprites to the unsuspecting Rainbow and Rarity, who immediately starts to snuggle with their newly found dose of cuteness juice. After returning home with her yellow Parasprite, Twilight then practically makes sure something will go wrong by saying what's there to worry about and going to sleep. The next day, surprise surprise, our fellow Twilight wakes up to find that the one Parasprite she had multiplied and now there's dozens. Not only that, but now these guys apparently make a mess of Spike's hard work. He raises the question, why? Why would these guys feel the need to make such mess where it doesn't benefit them in any way? Or if you'd prefer, why are they just mean? The answer is that they're evil, for some reason. But for them to be evil, they need to be semi-intelligent for them to enjoy causing non-physical harm to another creature. But they clearly act as animals. They don't react or seem to communicate, and all they do is eat and multiply. So why are they smart and evil at one point, but dumb and unintelligent the next? Well, the answer to that comes from a lucky animation piece that was undoubtedly unintentional but works to our advantage. All instances of a single Parasprite acting intelligent have occurred in a yellow Parasprite. Those instances include expressing mean joy, using tools, and so on. It is a long shot, but due to a certain lack of other explanations, we can say that all those instances are the same Parasprite, meaning that one yellow Parasprite is more intelligent than the rest. That Parasprite is the Parasprite's leader and controller, so they obey him when he feels like ruining the day to some pony. Most social animals in our world have a leader, but only a few of them have a leader with such a big difference from the rest of the group, but I'll talk about that more later in the video, so add this to the pile of knowledge to be used on a later occasion. And since I can practically hear you guys screaming about me ignoring the super spatial stacking abilities of our favorite dragon, I will tell you right now that I would tackle that problem later when it's a lot more noticeable. So, as Twilight continues to fight the adorable mob of chubby dragonflies, Rainbow isn't having an easier time. When Dash awakes from her dream thanks to her new 10,000 pets, she is, not surprisingly, confused. Only then does the Parasprites reveal their real nature, as they try to snuggle Rainbow to death. Luckily, with the lack of teamwork among the creatures, Dash stays alive and is simply annoyed by the unwanted attention. But in all seriousness though, this again suggests that the Parasprites are attracted to body heat, as the temperature in the high altitude of Rainbow's house would cause it to be a lot cooler than the surface, making Dash's body heat more attracting. Meanwhile, Rarity seems to be getting along with the Parasprites very well. Not only are the Parasprites not ruining anything, but they're even helping Rarity with running her boutique. This might be just me, but I find it extremely annoying that Rarity have shown that there are methods of controlling the Parasprites and putting them to good use, but then that method is completely ignored for the rest of the episode. I mean, look at this, the Parasprites are helping Rarity making dresses and running the shop, so imagine what could be accomplished if ponies were to harvest that power instead of throwing it away. The Parasprites could be used as extra arms, hooves to work, build, farm, and accelerate pony productivity by a reasonable amount. Add that to the fact that the Parasprites multiply extremely fast and you can build an empire using these guys. But nah, let's throw them back to the forest. I wonder if the method of controlling the Parasprites can be used by everyone or if it's just Rarity that's able to control them. I think it's probably the first, for Rarity's talents does not seem to be related to any kind of taming. I would expect that if it's the pony itself that matters, his or she's cutie mark would be a Parasprite. That would mean they're either a Parasprite whisperer or a couch potato. So anyway, as Rarity compliments her workers on their accomplishments, she reaches in and pets one of them. I only bring this up for the sound produced by the hoof touching the Parasprite suggests that the Parasprite's outer layers are rubbery or smooth in texture. Then, the Parasprite thanks Rarity for the petting by vomiting in her face. But, well, Rarity doesn't exactly like that. So she freaks out and sends the Parasprites away from her shop, to which the creatures respond by politely shoving an imaginary middle finger to her face and starting to vomit everywhere. Lovely bunch, these guys. This is the first time in the show where we see the Parasprites actually multiplying, and what a queer process it is. First, before the actual vomiting, the Parasprite shows signs of pulmonary distress, or, problems in the general throat and lungs area. As you can hear, it is producing that weird choking sound that accompanied the birth of a new Parasprite. This means two things. A. The Parasprites have an airway tunnel from which they breathe through, aka a windpipe, and B. The upcoming Parasprite is moving inside the Parasprite's body, and it's only just before its extraction that it interferes with the breathing. This immediately brought up the image of a womb inside the Parasprite's body that has an exit from the mouth. The Parasprite's version of the vaginal tube goes near the windpipe, and so, when a large object like a baby Parasprite goes through it, it expands and temporarily blocks the windpipe. The baby then exits the Parasprite's body through its mouth, and here is another problem. Why, on Earth, is the baby liquid? Why? Why would you do that? Once again, I'm facing an innocent piece of animation that breaks everything we know about everything. Damn you, DHX, with your amazingly complex and beautiful yet so unscientific animations. I suppose the Parasprites can have an outer shell thingy, an exoskeleton of kind that hardens when it contacted with air, or grows really fast, or something. I am pretty sure they have an exoskeleton, as it fits the sound we heard when Rarity petted them and the variety of insectish organs the Parasprites have. There's also these hair thingies. Are these something like fish bones? And oh, the beating and bouncing of the blob. That could be the heart of the Parasprite starting to beat. Maybe. The eyes and wings could have been inside the blob thing, and then they moved to their correct position with the hardening of the exoskeleton. The fact that we don't see any organs can suggest an open blood system, but it's not really proven. I don't know, guys, I need to know the basic Parasprite anatomy for this, and so far I'm just trying to figure out what the hell are they. And don't worry about my little overreaction earlier. I do appreciate DHX's amazing work, and I most certainly do not take it for granted. It is just my job as a science analyst to complain about every little thing. Though, I must say that this process of reproduction is awfully similar to mitosis, the cell duplication process, or budding, a form of asexual reproduction in single-celled organisms. I would be tempted to classify these guys as single-celled creatures, but their size would make them extremely unstable and inefficient, and they have organs that cannot be found in single-celled creatures as they are too complex, like eyes, teeth, tongues, and so on. I wonder what is the mating system of the Parasprites. It could be that there's two genders and we haven't seen or can't identify one of them, or maybe all the Parasprites are bisexual and can basically mate with any other Parasprite, or they're asexual, meaning they can reproduce without mating. I know that sounds weird, but such reproduction exists in our world. Leaving the microorganisms aside, the animals capable of asexual reproduction include some lizards and reptiles, some amphibians, small insects, and very few birds. I will not explain in detail how it works, as it is kind of complicated, but the point is that such mating exists. However, while it is a great reproduction method in case of shortage in males, it has its downfalls, so it should only be used if there are no males around. Since there are so many Parasprites, it is unlikely they need to breed asexually all the time, so I'm going to assume that the Parasprite's asexual breeding is kept as a backup way to multiply when no partner can be found. Asexual breeding will be slower and more demanding, so that could explain the slow pace of multiplying in the start and the fast multiplying towards the end. So to sum this up, the Parasprites are likely to be either bisexual or heterosexual and have an option to reproduce asexually if they need to. Moving on, in our beloved pony world, we left Rarity with baby puke all over her face. Since she doesn't like having baby puke all over her face, she decides to dispose of her workers and stuffs them all in her saddlebags. As she leaves her house, she meets that wacky pink friend of hers who starts to babble about her interest in instruments. Rarity then waves Pinkie Pie off and meets Twilight, who apparently found the same solution to her Parasprite problem. One Rainbow Dash later, and the trio goes to meet their animal expert, meaning they're going to dump all the responsibility on Fluttershy since none of them have a clue what to do themselves. As the door opens, we are greeted with Fluttershy's home staff, which consists of another 300 Parasprites or so. The staff tries to welcome the guests, but since we've established that Parasprites suck at teamwork, they miserably fail. As they enter Fluttershy's cottage, the three ponies are engulfed in a cloud of flying rainbow spheres and find that Fluttershy's knowledge of the creatures is about as good as mine. While we're inside Fluttershy's house, we can see some bags of animal food still full. Since previously we've seen the Parasprites eating whatever they could lay eyes on, this is rather strange of them not to eat these. This can mean one of two things. A. The Parasprites have a cooldown of sort and cannot eat everything non-stop, or B. That specific type of food is not edible for the Parasprites. Regular bird food contains mostly seeds such as sunflower seeds, white millet, corn, peanuts, and more. Or if the bird does not eat seeds, there are breadcrumbs, sugar water, or shreds of meat, but these usually come in different packages than seen here. Rodents' food contains pretty much the same basic things like humans' food, so it makes it unlikely that the Parasprites can eat ponies' food but can't eat this food. Of course, due to the number of Parasprites, for the first option to work, we need Fluttershy to have a huge amount of food at her house, something that even though makes sense if you think of all the animals she takes care of, is not proven in any way. So, I would say that the Parasprites just don't particularly like dry birds and rodents' food, and there was no shortage of other food with Fluttershy's caring hands. Or hooves. When Twilight and friends find that no one has the slightest idea what to do, Twilight freaks out as usual, Rarity freaks out as usual, and Applejack remembers that the episode started 10 minutes ago and shows up fashionably late. After AJ's cargo is destroyed, our heroes decide to use Miss Cowgirl's herding skill to round up all the little creatures and dispose of them. Okay, so the creatures are being rounded up into a ball and are pushed towards Everfree. All jokes aside, I would be worried about Everfree, as a giant ball of Parasprites dumped into the forest must have caused some problems to the ecosystem. We have seen that 3 seasons have passed and Everfree is still about the same, but if this was the latest episode, I would be worried. Of course, the forest is used to these guys and their numbers would usually be controlled by the large number of predators, the small amount of food, and how easy these guys must be to spot and catch. But a giant ball like that? Moving on. Like I promised, it is time to tackle the problem of our little friend's reaction upon being stacked. Seen earlier, and here again, the Parasprites tend to stick together in solid groups and hold on to that group even in situations where they can clearly fly away from. I found that very weird, as did most of the fandom, so I dug deeper, and boy oh boy did I found an answer. You see, fillies and gentle colts, such animals exist in our world. Fire ants have shown these exact abilities, and when stacked together while facing danger, they will act as a rubbery solid or a liquid if needed. You cannot watch these two instances and not see the similarities. The fire ants grab hold of one another in a unique way found only with them, and that gives them a solid, flexible form. The fire ants do that when facing danger, and using that technique they can walk on water, walk over holes, stick together, and attack as one body if needed, though this is mainly a defense mechanism. Remember everything I told you to hold on to? Are you starting to see a connection between those things? Our path starts to take form, so add this to the pile and hold on for a little more. Onwards we go, as the Parasprite ball is pushed into the forest, and our Pinkyless main 6 go back to Fluttershy's cottage to find that in her adorable kindness she have doomed them all. Fluttershy then admits that she kept just one Parasprite, and in the time of their absence he multiplied again. You might say there is no way one Parasprite could have multiplied so fast, but let us not forget that Fluttershy's cottage is literally made to provide animals with their ideal conditions, with nice temperature, lots of food and space, and all the other little things an animal needs, so it makes sense that the Parasprites multiplied really fast there. Also, AJ's roundup was kind of messy, so a few Parasprites could have escaped, and since the ponies ran all the way to Everfree, I would assume they got tired and it took them a while to get back. So now again, there's lots of Parasprites everywhere and we're running out of time as Celestia is to leave her castle and visit Ponyville at any moment. So, Rainbow decides to put her flying skills to good use and creates a tornado to suck up all the little candy creatures and throw them away again. Interestingly enough, the Parasprites in the tornado seem to be piled up and sorted out by color, which means there's a slight weight difference between the Parasprite that can be determined by their color. Such difference could be caused by a slightly different body, possibly to fit the Parasprites to their assigned roles in the group, like some social animals do in our world. Rainbow's plan seems to be working until Pinkie Pie shows up and dooms everyone. Yes, Pinkie, this was your fault, and don't you give me that look. Pinkie's spinning metal plates of musical death causes Dashi to lose control of her tornado, and the latter fades away slowly after sending all those hungry mouth straight to Ponyville. Nicely enough, the Ajax were considerate enough to make the fading tornado lair fit the Parasprites exiting it. Thank you! So, everyone is cross with the pink party pony and no one will listen to her, so our loving friends run along to Ponyville while again completely ignoring Pinkie. Meanwhile in Ponyville, everyone seems to be fine as the sky is raining cuteness drops and the ponies watch in awe as the adorable little thing starts to devour all of the food in sight. Oh no! Ponyville needs food, for without food, what shall our beloved ponies eat? Whatever shall they do? It seems like the only option left is the main six, minus Pinkie. So what shall our heroes— okay, bye Applejack, sheesh. What shall our heroes do to save us? Ah, Twilight thought of an idea to save us all. I bet it's an ingeniously well thought out plan that would totally work. Go Twilight! You can do this— oh what the hell! Okay, so now Ponyville is filled with Parasprites that can eat anything but food. And guess what? That's exactly what they're doing!
Nailed it!
You guys can forget about me trying to explain this. This is the direct result of magic, no way around it. So, let's see what's going on in Ponyville. Destruction, damage, feasting Parasprites, more destruction and damage, Parasprites eating words, wait, what? I would say they were just eating the ink, but then they won't be able to slurp it straight from the page, so I'm guessing Twilight's spell did a great job in making the Parasprites literally omnivorous. Oh, speaking of the devil, where is she going? Ah yes, going to Zakora. So, our local zebra identifies Twilight's problems as the Parasprites and boosts Twilight's confidence with that opportunity.
You're doomed.
So after receiving the news that they are totally boned, Twilight runs back home when she sees her celestial mentor leaving her royal palace. Meanwhile in Ponyville, yep, you guessed it, everything is still broken and the Parasprites are still running about feeding, so Twilight comes up with her amazing plan while the Parasprites are trying to eat Dashi. Honestly, this is no surprise, for as animals, ponies have proteins and such just like any other meat, and in numbers the Parasprites are more than capable of taking the privilege and taste it. What is strange is that the Parasprites are currently under a spell and they do not eat normal food right now, so three things could have happened. 1. These Parasprites are not affected by Twilight's spell. That is not likely though, as the spell's range seems to be rather far, so there's not much chance they manage to escape it. 2. The Parasprites could have been originally vegetarians, and the spell that flipped their diet caused them to start eating meat in addition to furniture. Or 3. The Parasprites are just trying to eat Dash's horseshoes. Weirdly enough, that seems to be the likeliest option, because we haven't seen the Parasprites trying to eat anyone else, and the fact that though vegetarians do not eat meat, they can still digest it and will eat meat if they need proteins. So calm down, Dashi, they're just trying to eat your shoes. Here's a sentence I never thought I would say. Come to think about it, Dash seems to be very attached to her shoes, as it is her most valuable trade she brought to Tradia, so maybe Dash isn't overreacting. And so, when all hope is lost and the situation looks darker than ever, Pinkie Pie to the rescue! So yeah, Pinkie Pie shows up with her unbitten instruments and plays the polka in the middle of the devastating wreckage. And what a surprise, the music draws the Parasprites after it with its catchy tune, and all the Parasprites follow Pinkie Piper Pie in a single organized line out of town.
But Neuron, why would music attract Parasprite like that?
Well, again, this is something that exists, but is not yet fully explained. Some animals have shown a reaction to music, like cows producing more milk when listening to classical music, or termites being more aggressive and active when listening to death metal, but all those stories tend to change through a variety of cases, so it's not scientifically clear yet. But I have an idea to explain the Parasprite's reaction. Let's look at music a bit differently. What is music? Sound. What is sound? Vibrations in the air. Though there is no reason for animals to react to music, there is reason for them to react to vibrations. Especially insects, who are smaller and more sensitive than other creatures and often rely on vibration to communicate, navigate and orientate. If the Parasprites are insects, something supported by the findings of this video, especially the ones I told you to remember, then that would explain why they have such reaction to music. If Parasprites use vibration as a way to communicate, something supported by the sound they produce, then music and sounds could basically be used to lure them. For example, the different sounds produced by the Parasprite can mean different things like help, stay away, or I found food. If a pony was to recreate a sound similar enough to that of a Parasprite, then he could attract them by creating the I found food sound, or repel them by creating the stay away sound. That is what Pinkie did with her instruments. Remember the flute, maracas and trombone Pinkie had and/or looked for but never actually used in the marching band? After gathering all the instruments she could lay hooves on, Pinkie tried different music with different instruments to find the one that attracted the Parasprite the most, and therefore is the most similar to the attracting I found food vibration. The best set of instruments she was managed to assemble is the one she used, leaving the trombone, flute and maracas aside as they didn't help or maybe even ruined the vibration. Because it is so loud, unlike normal Parasprites, more Parasprites react to the message, for the louder it is, the stronger the vibration is, the more Parasprites are supposedly producing it, and the more important and/or tempting it is. This seals the deal for me. The similarities of the Parasprites to different types of insects are just too many to ignore. Attraction to heat, found with insects. More and less active times in the year, especially in the spring, found with insects. Rubbery smooth exoskeleton, found with insects. Reaction to vibrations, found with insects. Forming a solid group when put together in a dangerous state, found in insects. Having a single more intelligent leader, aka ants and bees queen, found in insects. Having differently ranked individuals with slight physiological difference to play different roles in the group, found in insects. Asexual reproduction as a backup reproduction method, found in insects. The list goes on, leaving me with the conclusion that the Parasprites are most likely some sort of social insects. So, after a few minutes of marching, the 5 unoccupied ponies meet and greet Her Royal Highnessness to their little town. As Twilight attempts to create small talk and the princess admires the parade, one yellow Parasprite leaves the line while trying to escape the hypnotizing music, and he's a mindless slave to the polka again. Okay, bye. Maybe this is the same yellow Parasprite leader and its higher intelligence is what made him more resistant to the music. And so the episode continues for another minute or two while everyone is talking and being sorry and stuff, and the only interesting thing left is, like I mentioned in the start, that Philadelphia also suffers from an infestation. So the episode comes to an end, and so does everything I was managed to find about the Parasprites. I think all the information I found is clear enough to say that the Parasprites are some sort of social insects, and so I give this theory 5 on my Kennen scale. So yeah, though these cute little biology-breaking creatures make no sense on the surface, dive a bit and you can find a logical answer to almost all of the problems we saw in this episode. Almost. And I leave you guys with this thought. What do you guys think happened to the Parasprites that were brought back to the forest after being affected by Twilight's spell? Would they survive? Will they affect the ecosystem, and how? Will the spell fade out by itself, or is it fixed forever? Write your thoughts in the comments if you'd like. As always, if you find any mistakes or you simply want to add something to the video, you are more than welcome to write a comment. If you have a request or an idea of something you want me to research about, post that in the comments as well. I hope you've enjoyed this research. It was definitely the hardest and messiest so far, but I think the results were worth it. So until the next video, I'm Neuron, and goodbye everyone.